UK PM slams Trump for saying NATO troops avoided Afghan frontline.
Iran will treat any attack as all-out war against us, says senior Iran official.
Minneapolis shooting raises odds of U.S. government shutdown.
Winter storm grips much of U.S. in snow, ice, Arctic cold. Renewed verbal attacks from Trump, prompting Canadians to rally behind PM Carney. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has condemned as insulting remarks by U.S. President Donald Trump, suggesting that NATO allies avoided frontline combat during the war in Afghanistan. In an interview with Fox News aired on Thursday, President Trump said NATO allies sent troops to Afghanistan but claimed they stayed away from the front lines. The comment sparked anger in Britain, where 457 soldiers were killed during the conflict following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. Starmer said the remarks were deeply offensive and stressed that British troops fought and died alongside U.S. forces. He added that if he had made such comments, he would certainly apologize. President Trump also repeated claims that NATO would not come to the United States' aid if asked. The White House rejected Starmer's criticism. In a statement, spokesperson Taylor Rogers said President Trump was correct in saying the U.S. has contributed more to NATO than any other member. After the 9/11 attacks, NATO invoked its collective defense clause for the first and only time, leading the UK and several European allies to join U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Soldiers from countries including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Denmark also died in the conflict. Iran has warned that it would treat any attack as an all-out war as the United States moves additional military forces into the Middle East. A senior Iranian official, speaking anonymously on Friday, said Iran's armed forces are on high alert ahead of the expected arrival of a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group and other military assets in the region. The official said any form of attack, whether limited or large-scale, would trigger a strong and comprehensive response from Iran. He added that while Tehran hopes the U.S. military buildup is not intended for direct confrontation, Iran is prepared for the worst-case scenario. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that an American armada was heading toward Iran, but stressed he hoped force would not be necessary. He also warned Tehran against killing protesters or restarting its nuclear program. The Iranian official said any violation of Iran's sovereignty would be met with retaliation, though he did not provide details on how Iran would respond. He said Iran believes it must be fully prepared to defend itself against ongoing military pressure from the United States. The U.S. military has previously increased its presence in the Middle East during periods of heightened tension, often citing defensive reasons. However, last year the United States carried out a major military buildup ahead of strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities.
Multiple U.S. senators said on Saturday they will vote against upcoming government funding legislation after federal agents fatally shot a second American citizen in Minneapolis, raising the likelihood of a government shutdown next week. The current appropriations for major federal departments, including Homeland Security and the Pentagon, expire on January 31st. While the Republican-led House of Representatives has approved funding through September, the Senate, narrowly controlled by Republicans, still needs support from Democrats to pass the bills. Several Democratic senators said they could not support funding for the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, amid growing concerns over aggressive federal law enforcement tactics in Minneapolis. Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto criticized the deployment of federal agents and called for greater accountability. Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner said the brutal crackdown must end and that he would not back DHS funding while current federal operations continue.
A powerful winter storm swept across large parts of the eastern United States on Sunday, bringing heavy snow, sleet, and freezing rain from the Ohio Valley and Mid-South to New England. The storm was intensified by a surge of Arctic air gripping much of the country east of the Rocky Mountains. Winter storm warnings were issued across most of the eastern third of the U.S., affecting about 118 million people. The National Weather Service warned of widespread and prolonged travel disruptions as extreme cold strained energy supplies in some regions. In total, around 157 million Americans were advised to take precautions against dangerous temperatures. Conditions range from below zero near the Canadian border to freezing temperatures reaching as far south as the Gulf of Mexico. Strong winds worsen the situation, driving wind chill values down to as low as minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of the northern plains. Authorities urge residents to limit travel and take steps to protect themselves from the severe cold. Renewed criticism from U.S. President Donald Trump is prompting many Canadians to rally behind Prime Minister Mark Carney following a high-profile speech that drew a rare standing ovation at the World Economic Forum in Davos. In his address, Carney warned that the rules-based global order was breaking down and criticized powerful countries for using trade and economic integration as political weapons. He argued that so-called middle powers must work together to protect themselves from economic pressure. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself, Carney said, adding that countries not involved in decision-making risk being exploited. President Trump responded sharply, saying Canada lives because of the United States and suggesting Carney should be grateful for past U.S. support. Trump also shared an AI-generated image online depicting Canada and Greenland under the American flag. Carney's Davos speech capped a busy foreign trip during which he finalized a trade deal with China and pursued new partnerships in the Middle East as part of efforts to reduce Canada's heavy economic reliance on the United States.